2003, he set up Mpanga Advocates, now locally and internationally acknowledged as a leading firm in Uganda. And he's also a member of Bowmans, an African legal services group. He serves as the deputy chairperson there. Yes, in 2010, David was appointed a commissioner for oaths and notary public in November. David also has a cultivated specialization in financial institutions law, international commercial transactions, mergers, acquisitions, as well as oil and gas. He also has experience in handling public interest cases in the Constitutional Court, and he has appeared in a number of landmark cases. And the next explains why we refer to him as Owechitiibwa. He serves as a Minister for Special Duties in the Buganda government, a First Nation institution headed by the Kabaka, and it's around this time that we're celebrating his 28th coronation anniversary. We congratulate you and Ssaabasajja Kabaka Wangale. He's also married to Dr. Fiona Muhwezi Mpanga, and they have 3 lovely children. He's a family man, and from what I've read, you could notice he's rich, he's experienced. By 1998 is when when I was being born. So yeah, it's quite 23 years, and here we are, I'm hosting you. Such a privilege. Yes, allow me invite you to speak to us, and along the way, we'll keep a conversation going. Just a minute, I would like to share that he will be talking to us until 4:45. Then we'll have a Q&A. So please send in your questions. I'll be noting them down. For those of you who want to speak, please share, and you'll be allowed to speak in the Q&A time. Councillor David Owechitiibwa, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Ernest. I'm not very sure about the protocol, but I think it's in order to say Mr. Speaker or Madam Speaker. I didn't get to see who the speaker was. And the Cabinet of Uganda Christian University Law Society. Thank you very much for inviting me here again. I don't know whether your records show that I've been to UCU physically at least twice, and on the last occasion, generally to give talks of this kind of nature. On the last occasion, I did indicate that not having had the privilege of going to university in Uganda, I had the lack of an alma mater in Uganda, and I'd hoped that UCU would adopt me. And let me say that I'm a Mukono old boy. It felt like so because I've been twice, and so on the third occasion, although I'm doing it from a distance situation from my home, it's still a great pleasure to be here with all of you, and indeed a privilege to be able to speak to you about preparing a career in legal practice. Ernest, the moderator, asked me to tell you my full names. My full names are David Frederick Chisitu Wama Mwesekezi Mpanga. When I was in school, I was called David Frederick Chisitu Mpanga. But of course, you tend to be called David or Daudi or David or K, the initials Frederick Chisitu, in my professional career, because I happen to have a namesake who's also a lawyer, practices pretty much in the same field as I am, and who is quite close to me in age. So we don't tend to get mixed up as some people would. For example, if it was father and son, some people might think, generationally you're different. We're about a year or two apart in age, and we generally practice in the same corporate commercial field. So it's easier for me to use abbreviations of my middle names in order that I may distinguish myself from somebody else. But it's also a good conversation starter. So, generally David F.K. Mpanga, as Ernest spotted, the F.K. stands for Frederick Chisitu. I thank you very much, Madam President, as well, I should have said, for inviting me here and giving me the theme of preparing a career in legal practice. We have a few minutes, and I don't have a written text for you. I'd like to speak essentially from my heart, but I see that this is a recorded session, and I hope it will be available for those who haven't been able to join us and also available to those who might want to go back to it to listen to it. Like a good lawyer, I must start with definitions, disclaimers, and assumptions. Starting with definitions, legal practice, I am assuming to be practice in the law. It has many branches. It has the commonly referred legal practice, which is private practice as an advocate, called the bar. But it also has the academic wing, people who teach law, sometimes also practice as advocates, but your lecturers who are, or professors who are exclusively legal academics are also in a form of legal practice. The judiciary are also in a form of legal practice. Many of them come out of the ranks of advocates who are practicing at the bar, but some of them join the judiciary and start their legal practice as judicial officers, right from magistrate grade 1 all the way through sometimes the Supreme Court. And that's a form of legal practice. There is in-house legal practice in the private sector. So you might get people coming out of advocates, private practice, or people coming straight out of university and LDC and going into corporate in-house practice, which is your general counsel for one client, as opposed to an advocate who sits in a firm and represents many clients as they come in, is independent, and advises an independent contractor. In-house counsel is an employee, and they generally advise the chief executive officer, the chief operations officer, the board on the running of the company, legal matters relating to the company, legal risk, and help the company handle its matters and administrative matters in accordance with the law. There are in-house who are in state, in the state sector. These are state attorneys working in the Attorney General's chambers, Solicitor General's chambers, as prosecutors in the DPP, as lawyers in the state attorneys in the IGG's office, I think has them. FIA also does, the Financial Intelligence Authority, and other state entities that have state attorneys. Again, some people go straight out of Law Development Center and become state attorneys. Others come out of private practice and go into state in-house, if I may call it that, practice. That's a form of legal practice. There are paralegals, people who work as court bailiffs, people who work as patents clerks, process servers and the like. That's a form of legal practice. It may be at the very junior end or the bottom end of the legal practice hierarchy, but it is still a form of legal practice. And I would also say people who are working in the emerging legal services sector. Legal services includes people who have process serving companies, people who have document processing companies, people who are working in legal tech, are in the legal services sector, who might also be termed as being in some sense part of legal practice. But in this discussion, although I've given you the kind of the spectrum to show you how wide legal practice is, I really wanted my definition largely to be about private practice, which is the one area that I have a lot of experience in, of course, and knowledge about, personal knowledge. Some of the things, or many of the things that I'll say, will apply equally to anybody who is thinking of the other branches of practice. And I think that to the extent that they don't, you may want, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, and the moderator, you may want to invite a judge to talk about judicial service. You may want to ask one of your lecturers to tell you about an academic career in law, etc. Lastly, as a note of caution, and I think this is really where my talk begins, it's frequently thought, and it's a misapprehension which unfortunately affects many people's lives for a long time, that studying for a law degree leads automatically and inexorably to legal practice in one of the areas that I've highlighted, but pretty often people are focusing on practice in private, working in private practice as a lawyer. I say this, and Ernest did point out how old I was by saying that in 1998 he was just being born, and I'd already been 5 years in legal practice. I know this from experience. I know this because I've lived with people, I've worked with people, I've seen, I studied with people. LLB is only the foundation. It's an academic foundation that can lead you into so many different directions. So for those who are pondering whether they want to do a career in private practice, those who might be turned off by the things I'm about to say because suddenly they think maybe this thing's not for me. Those who are here at LLB because their parents told them to, because their teachers told them to, because their friends ticked LLB and they thought I'll do that, and they came with their friend. Those who felt that that's where their A-level qualifications carried them and they're just moving along, but they don't know where to go. They're drifting. An LLB, a diploma in legal practice that you'll get from LDC if you get in, are all good academic groundings, but they are not, I repeat, absolutely not an indication that you must and can only go into legal practice. There's so many other things that you should be, you can do, and that you should be open in your mind about doing. You could be a corporate executive, you could be a farmer, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be in a tech startup founder, you could be an administrator, a politician, an MP, you could go into civil society. There's so many things that you can do with an LLB. An LLB is a degree just like you could become an accountant, you become a banker, anything. So don't feel just because you've done an LLB that you must cross into legal practice. It's something that happens a lot, but it's not the only thing that needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen for you, if you aren't able to get into LDC, if you're not successful at LDC, if you're starting and you can't find work in legal practice, if you don't feel like your world has ended and it's the end of everything, you're just at the beginning of your careers. And your careers could take you to so many different fruitful and rewarding and thoroughly equally satisfying careers than just legal practice. So I really started with that disclaimer that don't feel that if you're in LLB, you must end up in this area. You don't have to. You can move into any other area you've learned. I didn't talk about military. You can do so many things. All these things because you've got this degree, because you've got an academic grounding, because you've learned research methods, because you've got the discipline of hard work, all those things stand you in good stead. But if you should find yourself wanting to be a lawyer, if you should still, having succeeded at LLB, having succeeded at diploma in legal practice, having found yourself clerkship and or a job in itself, the placement in a firm, what are the things you need to do to prepare for that? I think first, and I'm going to talk about general attributes, which I'll then illustrate with some stories and examples. Be purposeful. Point one, if you need to take a note, is be purposeful. There's nothing worse in life than the person who just drifts or expects to be carried along. If you imagine yourself walking into a large stadium, and this is one of my own personal nightmares, I'm personally afraid of crowds and the crush that may happen if you're in a crowd. But if you imagine yourself being in a crowd that is not socially distanced and that is literally shoulder to shoulder and front to back, people packed like sardines, and the crowd is moving into a stadium or moving into a hall together, you might be able to lift your feet and still be carried along by the people because everybody's squashed together and there's a group momentum. Some people move through life like that you just were placed in school and you moved along from primary 1 to primary 7 because teachers were moving you, because your fellow pupils were moving you, because the system just kept moving you on. And because you did the minimum requirements, passed some exams, and got to the next stage. This can be done. It can be done through primary, secondary school, university. It can be done on modules. You can generally drift and expect that you can keep drifting. You will not be able to drift into a legal career. And if you drift into a legal career, you will not drift into the successful end of the legal career. You definitely cannot drift into being a great lawyer. You can be a lawyer, or you can just be noted as attended, tick, but you will not be successful. You will not be significant. You will not be at the top end of your practice or the profession if you're drifting. Every single successful lawyer, and I think it must be the same for every career, doctors, engineers, business people, anybody who's successful in their career has a purposed life. You must be very purposeful because time flies. If I could have my time again in your shoes, I wish somebody had the wisdom to call on someone as old as I am to you to tell me that life is not a rehearsal. There is no point in life where they suddenly say, let's blow the whistle, now your official life has started. You are in life right now. And a lot of the decisions or the indecisions or the things that you're doing or failing to do will bind you for quite some time, will have a lasting effect on you. I'm not saying it will be bad, but I'm just saying that you will have to take purposed steps, because those steps, you can't have your time again. All right? Time flies. Time only moves forward. So be very clear in the things that you want to do. Sit down from time to time and write these things down. Right? Think through, if you want to work in private practice, in corporate commercial law, what subjects are you studying now? Because if the options that you're choosing in your second and third year, or third and fourth year, are not the academic foundation for the kind of practice that you want to be in, you might be able to get into that practice, and you probably will be able to pick up the law then as you're practicing, but you will have lost some ground on the people who started and understood, say, just for example, intellectual property in university, and took the time to study it and understand it and its concepts, than you that has to learn intellectual property on the hoof as you're in a live fire exercise. So if I was to categorize legal practice as in military terms, it's the war itself. You're actually engaged in war. So in the training, you must be purposed, the kind of training that you want to engage, because the last thing you want to do is to learn amphibious fighting under hostile fire. Just imagine if the first time in the Second World War, the Allied forces ever did an amphibious landing was on D-Day under German fire. Maybe the result would have been different. But this is something that they had done, the training, the preparation. So it starts by choosing the right subjects, because you're purposed. You know what you're thinking about doing. It may not be a closed set of things, but there must be something. You can't just be drifting. As Lewis Carroll, the author who wrote Alice in Wonderland, said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. If you have absolutely no idea, you'll just wander around. So you'll end up just taking a road because, after all, you're going nowhere, so you don't know, so it doesn't matter. But if you know and you're purposed, my first piece of advice to you would be, please start right now by choosing the right subjects. Start planning. Plan your life in chunks. We're not promised tomorrow, that's true. But then tomorrow might come and we're still here. And the last thing you want to say is, well, I wasted yesterday because I didn't know that I'll be here tomorrow. But now I'm here today. What do I do? Very important thing is start planning your life in segments. When you come for interviews, you'll frequently be asked, what do you want to do? You'll frequently be asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? You might be starting your LLB and it's your first year, your second year, you've got 2 more years and you think the whole world is lovely. I understand there's a Mukono in Wandegea, there's a Wandegea in Mukono, and you're enjoying yourself in that Wandegea there, and you're generally drifting, expecting that, at a certain point I'll get serious. Unfortunately, time, as I said, flies. You have to have planned, what am I going to do about my career? Do I want to do a master's? Do I need to do a master's degree? If I want to do it, where do I want to do it? Because the grades that I need to get, the kind of degree that I need to get into those things that I'm looking for. All right. All those things are things that you need to be preparing and doing now. But because you didn't think about it, you took the wrong road. And you can't go back to say, oh, they asked me for an average score of this, or my transcript must have these things. Now I have to go back. You won't be able to go back. Your transcript is your transcript. All right. So preparation and planning. Generally, when I'm talking to the younger lawyers at the real beginning of their practice stage, I say plan your life in 10 years and live it in 5s or 2s, if you think 5 is too much. But have a 10-year plan. What are the things that you would like to achieve? 5, 10 things that you'd like to achieve in 10 years. All right. And then break them down into 2 years, 5 years, and then the next 10. It gives you targets to work to. It creates discipline in you and generally stands you in good stead, as I said. So my first thing is be purposeful. And before I leave purposeful, I always bring out this, it touches upon this, but also segues into my next point, that in life, there are many things we choose. We choose them because we like them. We are strong at them. Our skill set is aimed at them. They interest us, so we dedicate a lot of time to those things. It's the same in subjects that you'll do at law. It's the same in subject areas that you wish to practice in law. If you're not finding intellectual property interesting and you're generally finding company law interesting, you may find that you read more cases in the company law module than you do in the intellectual property law module, because you just, you don't understand it that much, or you chose it as a filler, or it came, these two have to go together. You've got to choose company law plus IP or company law plus commercial law number 2. And you said, I don't want commercial law number 2, I'll take IP. And then you get IP is not really interesting. So you end up choosing one. There's nothing wrong with that. Look for your strengths, and I'm coming to that in a minute. But never ever close your eye and your ear and your general awareness to the thing that chooses you. There are the things that we choose, that we like, but there are also things that choose us. You might become very successful, not necessarily accidentally, but because, as Seneca the Younger said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You might have been preparing yourself and getting yourself to a certain level, and the door that opened wasn't the door that you prepared yourself to walk through, but was the door slightly to your left. And that door, having chosen you, actually takes you down to a path of success, unknown and previously unprepared for. All right. But you become lucky because you are prepared and the opportunity presented itself and you walk down that road. In my own professional life, I really started out initially wanting to be a barrister working in a corporate disputes, they're called sets or chambers. The corporate disputes chambers that I interviewed for didn't give me, they were very highly competitive, and they didn't give me a pupillage, they didn't give me a training place. I wound up in what's called a general common law set, which does disputes, some of them corporate, but mostly to do with there was a bit of specialization to do with professional negligence, professional conduct and discipline, and contract and tort cases. I enjoyed the work. I was trained. I did my 12 months of pupillage, 6 of which you follow somebody around, the second 6 of which you get to do some cases of your own under supervision with assistance from a pupil who's the person you've been following around earlier, and under the auspices of this chambers. I wasn't taken on by that chambers, although I had tried my hand at the work that they were doing and giving me. and I'd really enjoyed it, and I thought I could make a career out of it. I then had to look for another place to go to, either as a junior tenant or as a what's called a third six pupil, where they extend your training a little bit and give you another opportunity to apply. So I went looking for a third six pupillage and got it in a chambers that did white collar crime. It wasn't my first choice. To be very honest, I was getting a little desperate. I was running out of money and time, I felt. And to a certain extent, it chose me because I was lucky in the draw of the people that I met in the first interview, the answers that I gave, because I hadn't really even done that much research. It was a filler that I'd thought, between this interview and the other, I'd like to do one more and see, get my skills up to speed, because I'd like to be taken on in this place or that place. And I wound up in a set that did white collar crime. I really enjoyed white collar crime. And white collar crime began, and advocacy chose me in that sense. And jury advocacy chose me. And I found that I was really good at it. Something that it had never crossed my mind that I'd be able to do. I wasn't drifting, but my preparation was not meeting the opportunity that I had prayed for and hoped for. My preparation met another opportunity. When I came back to Uganda, I then requalified to be called to the Ugandan bar. I was working in a chambers that was in the corporate sector. I had learned the solicitor side of things. There's no division in Uganda between barristers and solicitors or advocates and attorneys. So I had to learn, the client-facing, conveyancing, non-court going transactional practice. I learned it at LDC and on the job in Mugerwa and Matovu advocates. And then again, corporate commercial practice chose me, but within that, I still found the capacity, the ability to do that which had chosen me. Advocacy in criminal law, in white collar crime, advising large corporations, their boards, their CEOs in the events of being victims of crime, advising and helping firms out of emergencies that involve criminal conduct, white collar criminal conduct. And that's a huge part of my specialization. We call it governance, compliance, and investigations. It's a huge component of what I do, and my constitutional law practice, my court practice generally came out of that area of law. It chose me in that sense. I had to work still to get through, but it's a very important thing. Last point I'd make about being purposeful, which was our point number one, you remember, is be very attentive to the thing that chooses you. And don't always sit at the door that's closed. There might be two other doors that are open. Earlier in your career, the lower down you are, the more adaptable you must be, right? Because my point number two is we were, in my age and my time, able to get away with being generalists. We could try our hand at everything, more or less throughout our career. You're coming into law and legal practice at a time when the world is specializing. In Western larger economies in the Western world, and larger economies even in Africa, say South Africa, Egypt, people are specializing, very, very, very highly specializing. A person leaves university, becomes a lawyer specializing in environmental law. And in environmental law, perhaps even going even deeper into environmental law as it relates to electricity companies in the hydroelectricity dam space. People can really specialize in sale of goods. I don't know if you've done sale of goods law and you know Romalpa clauses. You'll find a lawyer who's done nothing but Romalpa clauses. He knows the ones that are halfway, the parts of that clause that have been litigated, what's been successful, what hasn't, what needs to be tried, what can be expanded, what can be added, how they work, when they don't work, how, what kind of reliefs do you get, Romalpa clauses plus shipping. Another person might, you can really get specialized because the economy is big. There's so many transactions that are going on. There's so much legal advice needed that you'll be able on your small stall in terms of the knowledge base to be able to dig deeper in that very narrow space, but still have enough traffic. It's not been the case here. We've needed to be able to turn our hand to conveyancing, be in court the next day, draft a will at the end of that day, advise on nuisance the day before yesterday, but then get into a trusts, dispute the week after, and then go to criminal commercial court, a criminal anti-corruption court the day after that, followed by, crowning it all off in the commercial court in a dispute on shares in a company. That's changing. That's changing. It started in particular areas such as tax. Some areas have their own jargon, have their own special discipline, which makes them difficult to dip in and out of. And the people who dip in and thrive then end up digging deeper and being recognized as leaders in that area. It then came into areas like banking. It came, with regulations. The more regulation that there is around the sector, the more you need to be informed, particularly about that regulation, and you then essentially begin to specialize, and there are enough people in that sector to bring you the work because you're the specialist in that area of work. You increasingly find that different parts of the economy are growing and enabling people, lawyers, to specialize. But it's not just the lawyers who are choosing to specialize. It's actually the clients who are driving specialization, because clients are paying lawyers, but they don't want to pay you to learn on their case. Does that make sense? No one has the time. No one wants to risk their transaction or their livelihood or their life with somebody who's just trying it out for the first time, who doesn't really know. Saying, well, we'll see. How many cases have been decided in this area? Well, I'll read it up in the night. Now, I'm not saying a lawyer knows everything. No, I'm saying lawyers have generally research skills and an idea of the lie of the land, and knowledge of presenting matters. Either if it be knowledge of present, but you need specialization because clients are increasingly sensitive to the fact that they will not pay your school fees. All right, clients want results, and they need those results from people who know what they're doing. So specialization is my point number 2. It's a very important thing for us to bear in mind as you're planning a purposeful legal career. And that specialization must include the ability, as I said, the flexibility to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Because as we happen to things happen to us. As we choose, certain things also choose us. Does that make sense? So point number 1 is actually somehow connected to point number 2. They're not mutually exclusive. You might want to specialize in one area, and then there's a small deviation in the economy that takes you down into, just out of general contract terms, or you want to do landlord and tenant, and then you ended up in force majeure clause advice, because force majeure became an issue du jour, if you'll excuse the pun, because of COVID. If it's become the issue of the day because of COVID, and you've advised 5 tenants on the force majeure clauses, and then 5 landlords on force majeure clauses, and then suddenly force majeure becomes an area that you've done research, you've done 2 cases on it, 3 cases, 5 cases. If the work is there, you'll suddenly find clients choosing you as the person that will be advising on force majeure and handling matters that entail force majeure. You mustn't say, no, go away. I really only ever wanted to be advising on landlord and tenant, but this force majeure thing suddenly took me over. If the thing is working and it's making you and living, and it can be expanded and deepened, don't stop to go back to the beginning, because that's where you had purpose to go. Carry on with the purpose of specializing in that area. My point number 3 would be, understand that in your specialization, in your legal practice, as you're starting now, tumwebaza, your competitor is a yesiga, true, because you may be, in the same year, you are a year apart, in the same university, you're going to LDC together. There might be a guy from Makerere Rutaya who's coming. There might be Odong also coming along. But actually understand, this is hard to understand and envision from where you are, but take it from me. Your competition is regional, your competition is global. The person that your client in the future, the client that you're looking for, who's 3 years, 4 years away from you now, 10 years from now. That client has a choice between you, a lawyer in Kenya, a lawyer in Tanzania, a lawyer in South Africa, a lawyer in London, a lawyer in the US, a lawyer in Hong Kong. Sounds weird, but it's true. If you want to know who's doing the lead advising on the pipeline between Hoima and Tanga, running through Uganda and Tanzania, the lead lawyer on that are English lawyers. It's an English law firm, and it's their Paris office of that English law firm. So English lawyers in Paris advising a French company, Total, which set up this ECOP that, is then they look for a fraction that they'll give to the Ugandan lawyers because they need some advice or some elements around Ugandan land law, Ugandan health and safety law, Ugandan employment law, Ugandan law in whatever, on regulations and whatever else that you need to understand. If you don't understand your competition to be global, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on two things. You're going to miss out on the best work that there is to offer, best, most interesting, most challenging, most lucrative. You're going to miss out on a career that would be rewarding and more fulfilling. You're going to miss out on significance. You will be an also-ran. If you understand, and maybe this is the best analogy, that you're an athlete, but the end goal is the Olympics. And there's a guy in Fiji who's training. There's a guy in Japan who's training. There's a guy you train not based on how the Ugandan people who are not really interested in fencing are doing. You might be the best fencer by far in your village and in Kampala and in Uganda. But the fencing champion is in France. Watch them on YouTube and see how they're doing. All right? Interest yourself in what is being studied in different universities, what's being studied in different law schools, what courses are there that can enhance and burnish and internationalize your credentials, because there's nothing worse, in my view, than parochializing yourself, limiting your own ability to practice, but yet other people are internationalizing their practice options. So if I can sit here and do work on a piece of work relating to an opportunity, an oil and gas opportunity in Equatorial Guinea, and I'm giving an example of things I've done. If I can sit here and advise on a multinational transaction that involves Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, and the United Kingdom, I am enhancing my skill. I'm enabling myself to get to the kind of good work that is around, the best work that is around. There is local work that you can keep you running in the local sector. I'm not saying local is bad. I'm just saying the best work, even in the local sector, will be taken away by the best brains from the international sector who have set themselves up in a certain way. Your competition is also machine learning. So you must also be aware that there are machines that are coming to do a lot of the things that used to be asked of human beings before. Back in the day, an individual who hadn't got any legal training couldn't find a single section in a single law. These days they can, just by using this little gadget in my hand here. All right. Now, this little gadget in my hand is your competition. You might not think it's so, but it is. If a person who otherwise would have come to a lawyer to ask, what does the Companies Act say? What does the Sale of Goods Act say? I want a template I want a contract for a land sale. If they can Google it and find it, they've cut you out. All right. So you must machine learning proof or future proof yourself as well. This is a subset of the global competition. You must be able to do something that a machine can't do. If your practice is really something that can be reduced to ones and noughts, please mark your practice before you've even started your career. Mark it as endangered, because if it can be programmed, it will be programmed and it will be done. Believe me, it will be done. At some stage in your career, as you move, you guys have 27, 29, 30, 40 years ahead of you. All right. Point number 4, legal practice is a business. It's a calling in some ways. People feel, oh, I was called to be a lawyer. I saw a person who had suffered injustice. I wanted to become the champion of the poor. I wanted to become the champion of the undertrodden. I wanted to expand the boundaries of, if you're very knowledgeable, the boundaries of this area of law and practice in Uganda. I wanted to be the first IP lawyer who did this and the other. Those are all very important things. But at the end of the day, we get this as a skill, and a skill that we must be able to sell to keep body and soul together. You might have all the cases memorized in your head. You might be able to draft a document and make it look absolutely beautiful. You might be able to do all sorts of things. But if you're not able to sell that thing and get somebody to pay for it, you're not in legal practice, you're just in dreams. All right? If you're not able to market and sell that thing. So you must understand the business side of, and that's a great weakness that unfortunately you never get told at university. You don't even get told properly at LDC. If you don't understand your legal practice to be a business that must run profitably, a business that is selling the most perishable of goods, advice, as soon as the advice I give has gone out of my mouth, it's gone. I can't get it back. There can't be a Ramalpa clause. You know Ramalpa clauses, by the way, am I puzzling people? A retention of title clause in a sale of goods act, in a sale of goods contract was first pronounced upon in the Ramalpa case, so it's called a Ramalpa clause. If you can't retain and say that advice belongs to me, you haven't paid for it, give it back. If I stopped here, you don't have the rest of my points. But the points that I've given you, I can't get back from you. Even if I banned you from using the recording or whatever, I can't get it back, it's gone. I give that advice over time. It might be in a medium of paper, it might be on a medium email, but I also give it over time. That's the other thing that I sell. I sell time and advice, very perishable and non-recoverable goods. Once the time is gone, I can't go back and retrieve it because you didn't pay for it. So you must understand the business aspects, very, very critical aspects of legal practice. You must understand the need to manage your time. You must understand the reason why clients come to us. They don't come to us for us to recite and show off about our legal knowledge. That's why you will find that it doesn't really matter who got a first class and who got a pass degree. I'm sorry if there are any teachers listening to this and they're getting disappointed, or parents. It's true. No client has ever come up to me and told me, I'll give you this work if you'll show me your degree certificate and the class of degree that you got. Many clients have come to me and asked me, can you tell me what cases you've handled of this type? What they're looking for is my ability to solve their problem. Our clients come to us for solutions. We are solution providers. We are not, or advice providers. We are not, undertakers or decorators, people who just add to the thing. I'm supposed to make a thing that is in a crisis without more drama resolved. I'm supposed to get a thing that might become bad, proof it against that problem that might occur. It must be a real and not an academic solution. It must be something that adds value to the client's work or their business or their life, and they will pay for that value. If you don't give them that value, then they'll resent you if they pay you, or they will not pay you at all. Alternatively, you might be very good at providing solutions and you'll be good, but if you don't know the value of billing on time, collecting when you build, the aspects of engaging on the money and knowing how much money, agreeing the price in advance, then you'll be that celebrated lawyer who's very poor, because clients will be coming, getting a top of the range service, getting excellent solutions and walking away. You can't get it back from them. All right. So understanding the business side of things and starting it early is a very important part of planning your legal practice career. In your legal practice, this is point number 5, ground yourself in ethics and integrity. The reason why we're entrusted with the problems of others, the reason why we are given an opportunity to advise others and guide them through their transactions, through their life challenges, through disputes, etc., is because we are ourselves supposed to be trusted individuals, and you cannot be trusted if you're not ethical, and if you don't have solid copper-bottomed integrity. All right? Solid copper-bottomed integrity. That solid copper-bottomed integrity is what then enables you to represent your client, knowing that this solution that I'm putting forward, even if it's going to get my client so much money, I will then be paid X amount. This X is mine. The larger number I have to give to my client. 10, 15, 20 people will come. Eventually, you'll have a number as big as the number that you got for your one client. If you think, oh my God, I've gotten 60 million shillings for this client, I better take 60. When your agreement with them was that you will only get 1.5 or 2 million shillings, and you want to run away with the 60, that's the last amount of money that you'll ever make. It's just, if you can't do it because you're an honest person, think about it from a business perspective. That will be the end of you as a business person. Aside from going to jail, nobody will ever entrust you with that business again. Yet if on the other hand, you paid that 60 million and maybe perhaps even forgot to bill the full 1.5 million shillings that you'd agreed, you will get a referral for another 60. That 60 will become 120. The next case you will do will be a 300 million case. Eventually, you'll be doing cases worth billions. You'll be able to charge tens and hundreds of millions because you're trusted, because you're there, because you're seen to be a copper-bottomed ethical person. All right. So it's very important to ground yourself in ethics and integrity. And unfortunately, so many young lawyers fall along the way because of that. And there are two reasons, which I'm going to explore in my next 2 points. I'm coming quickly to the end of this part, so we can have meaningful questions and discussion. Get mentors and get role models. What I'm doing now is I'm mentoring the 102 people on here. I'm essentially mentoring you, or I might be a role model. The mentoring is more active. It entails somebody being in a relationship of sorts with the person. Get someone who will have the time to mentor you. Don't just get a popular mentor, but find somebody who will give some time and enable you to resolve things, understand things, because there's not a lot new. Ernest, I don't say this to patronize you, but in the 28 years that I've been practicing, and the 23 years that you've been alive, all the legal challenges or sorts that you will find in your practice, I have seen. All right, or I've seen or I've seen somebody who's experienced them. And they're analogous to something. So life is a little bit like common law. You apply precedents to resolve the new challenges that you're facing. You apply old solutions, expand them by analogy, and move along. So get mentors, get the right role models. All right. When I say the right role models, many people have as role models the flashiest, most ostentatious, consumption-driven people, blinging around, large car, huge watch, flashy phone, new model phone. As soon as the new model comes out, always flying, Dubai, Instagram heroes and stuff. And I'm not going to come here and sound holier than thou. I don't know why certain people wish to fill the hole in their lives with those things. But you're not the things you have. You're not the money you have. You are the knowledge that you have. You are the integrity and principles that you have. You are your ability, in this game, your ability to deliver swift, efficient, cost-effective solutions. That's what you are. And with that, other things will be added to you. All right? Other things will be added to you. The lack of appropriate role models has led so many of our brothers and sisters into the hole of ethical misconduct, lack of integrity, dishonesty, and theft. Let me just call it that. People who dip into the client's account and run away with money. People who collect money for their clients and don't relate it. Don't pass it on to their clients. Many times those people have lack of mentors, wrong role models. They want to be involved in ostentatious spending immediately. They look at a person, that person doesn't look gray, that person doesn't look like their impression of an old person, and they think you just landed there the second day of your practice or the first year of your practice. No, because my next point after get mentors and role models is be patient. The profession that you've chosen, the career path that you've chosen is not tech where you're going to come up with an invention and disrupt. You know, you've invented WhatsApp and you've killed SMS and you're killing Facebook, and Facebook come and offer you billions to, you've chosen law. Law is a career that requires time, that requires experience, that requires wisdom, that can only be acquired through practice, which can only be done over time, which can only be done 1 hour at a time. And even though you'd like to sprint through the hours and quickly get to the point that you envision as your pinnacle, it will take you the number of years it has to take you to get there. So be patient. If you think the 2021 Land Cruiser is brilliant and beautiful and is the one that you want to be driving to impress the next girl or the next boy or your former schoolmates from primary school, you want to show them I'm a lawyer and I drive a big black Toyota Land Cruiser 2021, but you qualified in 2020. All right, go to the junkyard and ask a guy to have a look at the 1998 Land Cruiser. It will give you some perspective, because the 1998 Land Cruiser was the one that came out when I was 3 years or 5 years in practice. It's now, if it's still around, it's in the junkyard. All right, it's just a thing. But if I stole money to buy that 1998 Land Cruiser and I was caught and my practice died because I'd stolen money from my clients, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I wouldn't be able to have a practice that enables me to afford the 2021 Land Cruiser. That's not what I drive, but I'm just giving an example. All right, the 2021 was for me, the guy who qualified in 1993. I had to be patient to do the things that I needed to do to pay the dues I had to pay to build the practice that could sustain this luxury good in my time of luxury. Be patient, because that failure to be patient in legal practice generally leads to unethical conduct, that pressure that you put on yourself. All right, so those three things: ground yourself in ethics, get the right mentors and role models who will ground you in the right, ground you and orient you in the right way. Be patient. It's part of the preparedness, actually, that we're talking about. Be purposeful and be patient. In that patience, I'm not saying do nothing. You're doing something. Remember our 10-year plan, our 5-year execution, right? You're specializing, you are growing, you are investing, you see? So your tree or your crop is coming. Don't try to eat it before it's ready. It's a chicken, it's laying one egg at a time. Let that egg hatch, then have 2 chickens, etc. You know, keep growing things. Lastly, have fun. All right? Throughout this time, have fun. As I said, there is no time when you're rehearsing in life. Life is life. We're going through it. Prepare, do all those things that I've told you, but also have a life. Remember life. Have shelter, to have the love of family, to be able to do the things we enjoy. Socrates said the one irreducible thing about life, if you kept asking, but why do we do that? But why do we eat? But what? Ultimately, we do all the one irreducible things to be happy. Remember that we're doing all these things in order to be happy. Here on earth, I will not start talking about the things in the afterlife, right? So have some fun, get a hobby, have your friends, enjoy yourselves with your friends, exercise, keep your body fit because you need to be healthy. Look out for yourself and look out for those that you love. Have something that makes you a wholesome person. Nobody likes a great lawyer who knows only nothing but law and can't sit at lunchtime and talk about motor racing, football, or crafts, or wine, or something. Get something that makes you an interesting person, a deeper person that people like to engage. Be funny, be lighthearted. If you can't be funny, associate with those who are, in order that you may, lighten a mood when people are going through difficult times. So those are the few, 6, 7 points that I thought I'd relay. Of course, there's so many other things that one could think of in preparing for a legal career in legal practice. But those are the 6 hangers that I wanted to put a few things on and let you then ask questions, and we can fill out the rest of the sketch. Thank you very much. Whether it's just me or whether it's
okay. Oh, I'm here, and thank you so much for the 7 pointers you've given us. Just before I open the Q&A, from the talk, from being purposeful to specializing, creating a business, grounding yourself with integrity and ethics, it's less of a way of building a brand that you have to protect. And even businesses as brands, they take time, the reasons as to why you're there, you're providing solutions, and so you're learning the situation as it changes, you're getting better. This is, I'm very honored that I've listened to you, and I hope everyone out there has taken notes and you've learned some of the things that should be able to make you a better person. His experiences are very diverse, and from someone who has practiced from, both on an international scene and back home, he's been through, juggling very many different things. He said the things that come to us, we should accept them. And that is like the biggest. Yes, very many of us didn't want to do law, I for one, but I think I've taken this on and I've appreciated. The law came to me, I didn't go to it. So, and I'm enjoying every bit of it, learning so much and paying very keen attention to what is happening around me so that I enjoy the practice that I'm, the career that I'm going to take on. Maybe we'll start with questions in the Q&A before we go to the chat room. I would request our speaker to unmute himself. There is a question from Lutuga James. How is what I'm learning in school different from what it will be like practicing? And I think with the 7 pointers, somehow that should have been answered. And someone is asking about what do you say about the little payment to young lawyers, and how does one know the monetary value of one's time and advice? I think here we need to go to the rules that guide us on how we bill. And on the second point, council guided that I should never close my general awareness to the things that choose me. Isn't that double guessing life and being drifted? I thought I should have a plan to follow. Usually that plan will be drawn based on the things I choose, not the things that choose me. I think he will be responding to that, but I think you have to think out of the box. Life is not a straight path. And can a law student do anything right now to stand out in the world? I think so. I just graduated in economics. I'm embarking on starting a law degree. Is it worth it? Okay, I think we could first deal with the first few questions as we go on to the rest. More keep coming. So let's respond to the first.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll do a rapid fire. You did. I wasn't reading the chat, so I don't have the names. If you hear the answer to your question, please acknowledge that you have. If you don't, ask again, and we'll try and clarify. The difference between academic, what you're studying now, and legal practice. As I said, the academic degree is the foundation, right? You are building the platform on which a legal practice career is going to be constructed and erected. You're studying subjects that will present themselves as the material which you use, the tools which you use to solve real life solutions, real life problems in practice. So Mr. Isaac, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself. There's some feedback.
Oh, sorry. So let me do that.
So when you get out of university. Nobody ever comes to you and says, like I have a piece of paper here that says, you see, I've got a problem in constitutional law, and I would like you to look at Article 50 and tell me whether my right can be enforced as a constitutional matter. They generally come to you and say, I have a problem. I was arrested. Having been arrested, I was tortured. They'll show you torture marks. My family was harassed and chased out of our house. We were subjected to a search and they took items. I don't know what they never did an acknowledgement. So you get a litany of things. You're then supposed to structure those things into what's the best way of getting my client remedy. What remedies do they want? The remedies that they want are, they want a pronouncement that what was done to them was wrong. They want somebody who can make that pronouncement also to give them some compensation, and some other orders around that thing so that it doesn't happen again. Legal practice is the application of the academic law into real life. It will never come, as I said, neatly. Sometimes you get a matter that requires a consideration of tort, contract, and regulatory, public administrative law, all in one. And you're going to have to think through all the things. Sometimes you have teams of lawyers working on these larger transactions, which have company law aspects of them, have employment law aspects, they have competition law aspects, they have regulatory law aspects, they have public law aspects, they could have even criminal aspects, law aspects to them. Private practice is about applying. So a lot of what happens in LDC is to try and transform you from a person who just knows legal subjects, contracts, criminal law, tort, constitutional law, land law, and to get you into a practitioner, a person who knows how to use those things to give people solutions. That's the difference, I think. The next question was low pay. What do I think about the low pay that young practitioners get? Generally across the world, in all professions, wherever you start, you will start on relatively low pay. The word low is relative. I'm not arguing this as a lawyer, I'm only stating the obvious. And you're paid low relative to somebody else. You might be paid low relative to the people who are ahead of you. You might be paid low relative to people who are in another profession or you're joining at the same time. The reason for that is manifold. The market economics in it. There are sometimes bottlenecks in certain professions. The major thing to my mind to consider are about 2 or 3 things. One, the cost of living and general living conditions. There's certain ideas that we get in our head that, you see, I'm now qualified, I'm a lawyer, I wear a tie, I wear a suit every day. I think I must start at X amount of money because I think that's what I'm worth. Well, what does the market think you're worth? How much is the market paying you? But how much do you need to live? All right, how much do you need to get by and survive and be able to turn up to work without worry and be able to grow yourself and your practice? I think that the debate of whether the entry-level money paid to entry-level lawyers in legal practice would be completely distorted or viewed very differently by people who say are going into the building trade, or people who are going into medicine, or people who are going, if you look at it per hour, how much money are they paid? How much rigor do they have to go through? So there is certainly an equity point to be made there. The kind of law society, I think, has been trying to address some of the issues so that there isn't exploitation, so there isn't naked exploitation. But on the other hand, you can't legislate for so-called high pay because you're learning still. You're doing things that are not at the top end of what can be paid for. And this is drives me to the next question. How do you know the value of the advice and time that you're giving? There are many methods that you can use to measure the value of the time and the advice that you're giving. One method is subjective. Look at the overheads you have, the rent, the salaries, the utilities, all your expenses, your fixed overheads. Look at the time that you're doing the work in and divide that per person or within the firm, and you'll get roughly the amount of money that each one of you must bill per hour, the time that you're available. Draw even, and also want to make some money that you're going to put in your pocket, then you must have a certain amount of money extra over and above the just break-even point to know that my hourly rate must be this. But you can also base yourself on the value of the transactions that you're doing for the clients. The clients don't come to us just because we can write or we know how to type and put things onto printed paper and bind that paper properly. They come to us for assurance that what they're getting is going to be legal risk-free. In order to give them that assurance, we are applying ourselves and also giving some form of certification that if there should be a problem, you can come to me for professional indemnification. If I was negligent in the advice that I gave or in the negligent in the work that I did. So you must get enough money out of what you're doing to insure yourself for the kinds of value of transaction that you're doing. Right? One of the biggest mistakes the people who drove the bottom out of the mortgage security documentation market did was to think that mortgage documents are just about word processing. If I can remove retire Godfrey and put in Isiga Ernest, and I remove 10 million and I put in 3 million and the title details, boom, bap, and that's it. It begins to look like you are just word processing and it's fine. But in fact, it won't be fine, because if that transaction should go wrong, you are potentially liable for the full amount that was supposed to be secured that it turns out has not been secured. So you must take out professional indemnity insurance. Professional indemnity insurance costs money. You must bill enough, all right, to pay for that valuable insurance so that if anything should go wrong, you have someone to back you up. You must also put yourself out in the market and test what the market will pay for. We're constantly haggling over the numbers. We'll say, I'll bill $450 an hour. And that might make you blink, but there are people who don't blink at that number. There are others who think, well, I do value your opinion and I do want your services, but I'd like to pay, $350 or a blended rate of $250 at a capped amount of X. I must factor through a number of things to work out whether I'm still working profitably on the job that I'm doing, but that's the value that the market is paying me. So there are subjective measures. There are objective measures, such as the ones that I'm talking about market. And of course, the rules that Ernest referred to are also a guide, but are largely now followed in the exception and mostly litigation aspects, because they were done at a time when transactions were not as big and as lucrative as they are now. And sometimes they yield numbers that are not quite, not quite sensible. Is letting the thing that choose you, or being aware of the thing that choose you, double guessing and not planning. A military strategist, I think it was Clausewitz, said that the battle plan is the first casualty of battle. It's usually the first casualty of battle. Every general will make a battle plan. I think it's something to the effect that, no battle plan survived first contact with the enemy. Is the other way that it's put. You can plan all you want, but life never comes in neat little packages and working in accordance with your plans. Things happen in life. Unknowables happen in life. We know the known knowns, the known unknowns, but there are also unknown unknowns. There are things that will happen. Nobody in 2019 knew that COVID would happen, right? COVID happened. We now have 2 years of COVID, and we're looking at maybe, the rest of our lives having to deal with waves and vaccinations and all sorts of things. All right. So it's a very critical thing that you plan, but are also flexible enough to change your plan. You don't have to change the whole thing, but you must be flexible enough to change your plan to meet the opportunity that's presented itself. There's a joke, an internet meme that goes around of a guy who's briefing. It's a kind of a split screen. There's a guy who's briefing a newscaster in a newsroom, and the newscaster is asking, what's happening over there, and the man is reporting that they saw an accident. A large lorry bearing many crates of soda has overturned, and the newscaster says, "And what's going on now?" I said, "Well, we can see the soda, but we're waiting for a lorry with straws because we can't drink the soda without straws. So we're waiting for this lorry with straws to have an accident in the same spot in order that we may take the opportunity to loot the overturned truck with sodas." It's comic and it's meant just to amuse, but don't be that guy who sees the overturned crate. I'm not sending you to loot, but I'm saying who sees that opportunity and says, "Well, it would have been nice, but I'd like that opportunity to come with it because in my plan, I was drinking soda, but the way I saw it, I was drinking it with a straw. If soda has come in masses and you have to drink it off the bottle, drink it off the bottle." That's what has happened. Don't be the idiot who is waiting for straws. So I can't drink it without straws, and there are no straws, you see. So the plan is, it's not double guessing. It's plan, but be flexible, right? Be ready, because life doesn't happen in these plans. The last question. Chemist came to law after chemistry. There's mathematicians who become lawyers. There are doctors who become very good lawyers. Economists can make great lawyers. It really depends on what you want to do, why it interests you, and your commitment to it. So I don't see any contradiction in coming out from economics and becoming a lawyer. The late great Mpanga was an economist, studied politics, philosophy, and economics at Oxford, and then went on to do law and do the bar, and was a good lawyer, and flipped back into economics when he was the Minister of Finance at some stage, and then flipped back into law. So if you're multidextrous, it's great. There's no problem with it. I think the last question was something about standing out. How can you stand out when you're a young lawyer? There are many ways in which you can stand out, but of course, you only begin to stand out. It's the foundation. So you can't immediately be, the big shining star in the legal practice galaxy when you're straight out of university. You just can't. But stand out, be good in the academic field, be good in the application of law to practical problems. Start, researching, writing essays and putting them in publications, attending conferences, finding speaking opportunities. There are all sorts of things that you can do to try and stand out. But again, as I said, patience. Don't try too hard. It's not necessary. There's certain things that will happen in their own time. Your breakout case will not come advertising itself saying, this is the case that's going to make you famous. You will get that instruction and that case will come and it will make you famous. There are many people who think I started practicing in this country in 2005 when I represented Kizza Besigye in the rape trial and the treason trials. I've been practicing here, as you heard, from 1998. Nobody knew. But when I took on that instruction, I didn't think, oh my God, this is the case that's going to make me famous. So this is how I'm going to stand out. I was able, from my skill, to throw myself up as a person who would solve the problem that particular client had. I solved it, and that made caught other clients' attention. It's a preparation thing. It's being able to take up the available opportunity to stand out. But it's not, I don't think, a purpose thing where you're just going to say, if I don't stand out today, then I must stand out tomorrow, and I'll stand out by jumping off this or doing that. It's too contrived. The standing out is like a marathon. You start seeing people breaking off into groups. The leader pack presents itself. There's a pace setter. They may drop off, and then the leading group will still pull away further from the other group, and then groups will start breaking off. It's just the way the thing is. Be prepared. I think those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions that I had taken down.
Thank you very much for responding to the questions. There are several that keep coming in. I would prefer, there is a question in our chat room that I may interest you to respond to. Someone was asking, Mr. Maxwell Ochaya asked, what motivated Mr. David to shift practice from UK back to Uganda, despite his possession of all required qualifications to succeed in the UK? And he also asked, how best can one prepare for an international career? And someone also asked, I would like to find out if it is safe to have a picture of what I'm going to take on, because I really don't see myself practicing. Yet we're often advised to be open-minded. Am I limiting myself? And in the Q&A, I may interest you with another question in the Q&A. It was about, just a minute. Yes, someone, an anonymous attendee asked, how does one market themselves to potential employers? What do you as an experienced lawyer and employer look out for? And the other asked, what areas of specialization should we look out for while at law school? Yes, the other questions about specialization. And someone asked, is successful practice about winning cases? And what do prominent law firms seek for when employing new graduates? I think we'll respond to those as we wind up.
Very quickly, and I'm sorry if I squeezed the question and answer time. There's a question of what motivated my move from the United Kingdom to Uganda. Although I'm the holder of a UK passport and would be entitled, a British citizen and would be entitled to live and work in Britain for the rest of my life, I'm Ugandan by origin and native disposition. I preferred to work in Uganda because I preferred the challenge of building Uganda. Many of the things that need to be done, I could do more impactfully here. Many of the things that are being done need to be done and not being done at all. Those that are being done are not being done properly or to with the most excellence. To a certain extent, even the competition is less in a strange way, and I have advantages here that I didn't have there. So I chose, in terms of networks, so I chose to come back because, it was the pull of my nature. I felt that I was more satisfied here. I might make less money, but I'll have greater impact, and I think I'd be able to leave more of a significant change. How best to prepare for an international career? The international aspects of legal practice are largely in commercial aspects of law. So learn commercial law, learn your international sale of goods, learn your international transactions, learn your intellectual property, learn your projects and project finance and financing, banking and financing law, because those are the things that tend to have multinational aspects or international aspects of them. Expose yourself to international networks. You do that by, if you can get an opportunity to go and do a master's degree abroad, do that. If you can do it online, do that. You're getting friends and people that you know and you've been through certain common life experiences with. It helps a lot in building an international practice. But ground yourself. It's an important thing. You can't just be of nowhere. Because, as I said, the specialists and the people in every place who are specialists in Uganda, in Congo, in Kenya, so you can't just say I'm an Africa specialist, because ultimately, when it's even though it's Africa, the transaction has to land and be grounded somewhere. And if you're touting for the work that relates to the East African crude oil pipeline, you must be able to speak to Tanzanian or Ugandan, or at the very least, East Africa law, East Africa community law, and be able to say, this is my grounding and this is how I get into international practice. It's also worthwhile paying a little attention to the areas of law or the laws that are generally applied in international transactions by virtue of accident of history, by virtue of international global order. If you can't get an opportunity to learn English law and qualify as an English lawyer, do that. If you can get an opportunity to do the New York Bar, do the New York Bar. These are large international financial centers. And a lot of the money that comes out of New York is governed by New York law. A lot of the money that comes out of England is governed by English law. A lot of the work that's done between parties who may not have any connection with England, but are international parties. I was advising recently on a transaction that was being put together by Ugandan agents who are working with a Russian principal and want to connect them to a Ghanaian pharmaceutical company. Now, that transaction has to be governed by some law, and all of them were happy to be governed by English law, Uganda, Russia, and Ghana. My understanding of English law, my grounding in English law enables me to be able to identify issues on which an English law specialist must give us advice in order that this may go. So that's how you proceed with international career, some of the ways in which you prepare yourself for international career. I think somebody talked about is picturing their practice and not seeing themselves in legal practice in the future. If you were with us in the beginning, you'd have heard me say that actually what you're doing, LLB, does not inexorably lead you into legal practice. It's an academic foundation in the same way as BCom is, or a general degree in art, or a general degree in geography would be. It's something that can enable you to do a whole host of things. You might be a farmer, you might be a tech entrepreneur, you might be a business person, corporate executive, you can be many things. So don't feel, if you don't see yourself as a lawyer in 5-10 years time, don't feel obliged to be a lawyer just because you've done LLB. You're just moving with the herd. All right. That's why actually I also talked about the purposeful aspects of this. If you look down 5-10 years down the road and you can't see yourself in legal practice, leave it. Try the road that your vision gets you to your vision, rather than just taking this road. How do you market yourself to potential employers? There are very many ways, but first of all, dust off your CV, make sure that your grades are good. Get your interview skills polished up. Don't oversell yourself, but the worst thing in interviews that I've seen is people who undersell themselves, people who can't speak to their strengths, people who come off as cardboard cutouts. You're competing against so many people. And this goes into the point I was saying about having fun. Get hobbies, things that make you an attractive person. We're not looking at just the cleverest and highest degree holder. Apply yourself to understanding solutions and being self-driven. Nothing worse than the person who has to be stood up. You have to stand on someone's shoulder and show them point after point. You do get training, you do get orientation, you do get mentoring and molding to get you up the ladder, but you must also have some self-start in you. You can't just come and expect to be spoon-fed all the way through, and it shows many times in initial stages, initial contact. Self-confidence is another thing that goes, and I'm not saying we only have room for alpha males going around in the chest. But what I'm saying is you mustn't also be too reticent about yourself. You must be able to put yourself out with some confidence, not being cocky, but not also being too shy. I was asked what makes a successful successful practice. Is it winning cases? Winning cases is one aspect of success in practice, but I don't think it necessarily is the be-all and end-all. There are many things that clients look for. And as I said, the most effective is giving clients efficient, cost-effective solutions. timely solutions, wise, practical solutions. So those might include advising your client to negotiate a settlement, even though your academic self is telling you, my God, this is exactly the facts of that case. And, in this case, the Supreme Court said, how long is that case going to take to get your client? How long is the trial going to take before your client gets that pronouncement? And how much will they have lost? They're not in the business of litigating and getting good judgments so that they may be studied in UCU. They're in the business of manufacturing widgets. They have a case, they have a great case, but maybe the best lawyer is the person who says, you know what, you have a good case, we could win this, but it's going to take us 6 years to win this. We'll have lost so much by that time. The market opportunity is very minimal. You must settle this case on a no-fault basis. Let's fashion a settlement on this basis. You're going to pay out some money, but think about how much money you're going to save and earn over the period that you're going to be able to work unmolested and undisturbed by this thing. So the successful lawyer brings practical solutions, understands what their client needs and how they need it, works in concert with their client, doesn't just win cases for winning cases' sake. Winning is good, but effectively delivering for the client, I think, is more important. Yes.
Okay, thank you. The other question that just came in was, yes, you're a very busy person. You're a minister in the Uganda Kingdom, and someone got interested with a bio I read about you, and they were asking how you're able to put up with all that and yet remain successful. And I think it's how someone divides their time. The person asked that we have 24 hours a day. How much do you weigh? How do you program yourself? You could respond to that maybe, because it seems
I think one of the best things, and unfortunately today's lecture has not been the greatest illustrations of it, because I think we're supposed to finish at 5:30 and we're 8 minutes off. One of the most important things is an understanding that time is a finite resource. It's the thing that billionaires wish they could buy but can't. It's the thing that paupers have in exactly the same amount as the richest or most powerful man in the world. And it's a thing that, when our time is up, our time is up. We will not be able to keep going because we're the richest person, most powerful. We have an agenda. We have things to resolve. East African integration is not yet finished. When our time is up, it's up, right? So it's the discipline of keeping time, starting things on time, ending things on time, allocating things time, so that you plan your day based in blocks of time, understanding the important things and the not so important things. So many times, sorry that I keep using the word times, often we in the pursuit of, say, professional excellence, we don't give time to our family. We rob our family, our children and loved ones of our attention, because I'm busy implementing solutions for my clients and accumulating money. And I might think that money is the most important thing because I need to pay school fees, I need to put up my house, I need to get X, Y, and Z. But you need to really understand, even right from the beginning, that actually it's human relationships are the most important thing. It's happiness. All these things are geared towards happiness. So you must ensure that those things that keep you happy, family and loved ones, the hobby, the book that you really enjoy reading, the alone time that you also need for your own mental health, you must plan all those things very, 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 very deliberately. If I could share a screen here for just 1 second, I hope I'll be able to. Am I permitted to share a screen? Yes, I am. I'll show you my Outlook, and I hope it won't be giving away people's. There's nothing confidential. I'll just put this here, and this is the message. The thing that you can read is the invitation. To the Zoom. But so you have very clearly tasks to do. You have very clearly your time set out in blocks for you for each day. But in each day, set aside some focus time, some time for yourself, some time to think through things that you need to do, things that you needed to resolve, things that you wanted to complete but haven't completed. Take leave, take time off also is an important thing, because the work grind can be exhausting, and the exhaustion may creep up on you, and it may manifest as burnout. So take time off. In that time, it's funny when you think that you're not thinking about work, you're sleeping, you're reading, you're going to the lake and viewing the ocean or wherever, whatever it is that you're doing in your time off, you're riding your bike, you'll get the best ideas of how to do things more efficiently, more effectively. When your brain is not bombarded all the time by information and things. A word to you, it's also happening to us, but I think it's something that is probably more intense for you. Social media, this thing, there's somebody who's becoming a billionaire from attracting your attention. The one thing that we don't realize is that unlimited social media use makes some people very rich. There's a reason why Zuckerberg is very rich, why Sergey Brin and the others at Google are very rich, whoever owns YouTube. And there's a reason why when you get into YouTube, you somehow go into one video and into the next and into the next and suddenly realize, oh my God, it's an hour or 45 minutes or the GBs are gone. That's what's limiting you. The GBs are important. And if you're on Wi-Fi, so, oh, I'm in the hostel, I'm on Wi-Fi, so I'm okay. That's your time, all right? Actually program your phone, if you can, to limit your social media access. It's now possible. You'll be surprised quite how much time you have in a day. A lot of people who think I don't have enough time are not prioritizing their day properly, but they're also wasting a lot of their time. Don't waste your time. And the people who waste your time are your enemies. Consider them as such. So if a person comes to my office and they don't have an appointment, I will not see them. With very, very, very few defined exceptions, I will not see them. I will tell them point blank that I plan to see the people I will meet because I only have that 1 hour. All right. So if I planned for Mr. Yesiga's project and then Mr. Dong walks in and Mr. Dong takes 40 minutes of my time trying to sell me something that I actually don't need, and I'm just too polite to tell him, Mr. Dong, go away, I have wasted time. I have lost value. I'll never be able to recover that time. If you understand your time to be in that, you start getting very irritated, very, very irritable about 5-minute delays because you know the value of 5 minutes, you know the value of 30, all right? If you don't discipline yourself on those things that are time thieves, then you'll find that the work-life balance is very hard. And as they say, nobody at the end of their life lies there and thinks, oh my God, I should have worked harder in the office. I should have spent time with these children because the things that I'm working for are theirs. I should have known who loves what. I accumulated so many CDs or this or that, and none of my children loves music. None of my children, is interested in asset management. But I've left them assets that are just going to be millstones around their neck. Why don't I spend this money with them on a trip where they'd have remembered me and I'd have remembered them and gotten to know them? So it's a very important thing, learning how to manage your time in the work-life balance. Great question.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing with us, for responding to the questions you have. And I think I've gone with all the points, but most importantly is, yes, build your brand, have principles around them, and have fun. Yes. I read somewhere about you and someone had written you wanted to be a DJ. I don't know how far you've gone. You talked about your music, the CDs, and yeah, it came back. Without wasting any other time, I will invite His Excellency Dominic Hodong to give the closing remarks and prayers on behalf of the Law Society, but also extend my sincere gratitude to you, Owechitibwa David Mpanga, for having spared time to talk to us. Yes, it's been 2 hours, I must say, of good mentoring, and I've taken enough notes. I hope everyone out there has notes This video will be available on our YouTube channel. For those who missed out, you could always come back and watch. There is a lot to learn here. So much wisdom has been shared, knowledge. We appreciate you, and may the good Lord continue to bless you and keep you safe. His Excellency Dominic Odong, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Ernest, for the invite. Without further ado, I would like to also thank Councillor David for the inspirational moments and session you have given us. And thank you for this golden opportunity and accepting the invite. It is truly an honor to receive words of wisdom from a well-renowned lawyer like yourself. Basically, the quotes I received as an individual: 1, ground yourself; 2, ethics and integrity; be patient; get the right mentor. Then you have to stand out as an individual. I would also like to thank Uganda Christian University Law Society. Yes, the work we have done, I think, at least has been good enough, and I think the session has been successful as well. I would like to also thank Liz, Elizabeth Tumebaza for this session as well. Without further ado, because we're out of time, just as Council had said, I would like to lead us into a word of prayer. Let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Oh Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the moments you have given us on such a wonderful day. We also like to thank you for the members who have been able to join us today in this session. And we hope that we shall be able to pick a lot of the key points that we have received from our dear one and only Councillor David Mpanga. And we shall be able to dispense the same knowledge to others and inspire the others. Through Jesus Christ I've prayed. Amen. Thank you very much, Council, for your time. And I hope we shall have the opportunity to meet once more again in the future. Thank you. Back to you, Ernest.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And His Excellency Bernard Owondo, thank you so much for supporting the UC Law Society. I saw you somewhere during the conversation. And yes, we acknowledge your presence with us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you so much, everyone, for having tuned in. I hope you've learned. And allow me to say bye-bye. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Please share with your friends. This video will be on our YouTube channel very soon. For the questions we weren't able to answer, we apologize. We're out of time. The questions were really many, but we will always organize more sessions to have your questions answered. Thank you so much.